hasn't happened yet. It also ended what the Bush administration called enhanced interrogation techniques, what others call torture. Obama's decisions continue to resonate today amid new terror threats and plots. And joining me now to discuss all of this, Philippe Sands, international lawyer and author of Torture Team, Rumsfeld's Memo and the Betrayal of American Values, and former top speechwriter for President George W. Bush, Mark Thiessen. He's author of Courting Disaster, How the CIA Kept America Safe and How Barack Obama is Inviting the Next Attack. Welcome to you both. Thank you for being on this program.
Thank you very much.
So you're here. How Barack Obama is inviting the next attack. That is very provocative. Do you think because he said that he's going to close Guantanamo Bay?
No, it's because he's eliminated the capability to capture, detain, and effectively interrogate terrorists. You know, if you think back to the period after September 11, 2001, we didn't know who had attacked us. We didn't know that Khalid Sheikh Mohammed was the mastermind of the 9/11 attacks or the operational chief of Al-Qaeda. And then we began to get capture terrorists, Abu Zubaydah, KSM, and we found out that there were two terrorist networks out there that were threatening us. The KSM network that hit us on 9/11, and the Hambali network, which KSM had tasked to fly an airplane into the Library Tower in Los Angeles and blow it up. So using enhanced interrogation, and I tell the story in my book, we rounded up those two terrorist networks. Now fast forward to 2009. There's a new terror network in Yemen called Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula. The Obama administration admits we knew nothing about their plans to attack us in America, and we were caught blind on Christmas Day.
Well,
Why?
A couple of things here to throw to Philippe Sands. Number one, it is generally assumed right now and said even by former Bush officials that President Obama continues much of the anti-terror infrastructure that President Bush and the administration put in. Number two, about Yemen, that they did have the intelligence about this guy, but they didn't connect the dots. To you, Philippe, the fact that this Guantanamo Bay prison has not been closed, what signal is this sending?
Well, I don't think that's sending too much of a signal, because the intention is obviously to close it, and whether it was January this year or July this year or January next, the fact of its closure is a certainty, as President Obama puts it, and that has, I think, been very well received in many parts of the world as eliminating, as I think President Obama himself put it, one of the root causes of a recruiting tool. And of course this is a place, the United Kingdom, my country, has been. We're well aware of the situation in the 1970s where Britain did use many of the same techniques, and if you speak to British intelligence officers today and those who were active then, as well as former IRA people, they will tell you it was a terrific recruiting tool. But I really need to deal with the facts. I mean, Mark has written a terrifically entertaining book, but it's really a book of fiction because it's not evidence-based. I'm interested in facts. I read, for example, the sections where he wrote about the same person that I'd written about in my book, Mohammed al-Qahtani, alleged to be the 20th hijacker, and he describes the interrogation he was subjected to at Guantanamo in the autumn of 2002, and he says a great deal of information was found out from that man. Well, he obviously didn't speak to the head of al-Qahtani's exploitation team, who I did speak to, who basically said they didn't get anything really out of him at all that was meaningful and useful. And I think if you speak to seasoned interrogators, they will tell you maybe you get a little bit of information, you don't get a lot, but what you do get is completely overridden by the price that is paid of setting up a recruitment tool and recruiting others in their terrible cause.
Well, let me put that to Mark then, because that is what most counter-terrorist and intelligence officials say, that you actually don't get what you need. They'll tell you anything just to stop these harsh measures. And furthermore, today's news is that the United States believes that some 36 Americans who've been radicalized in prison here are now heading out to Yemen, and their whereabouts and actions unknown.
The people who say what Philippe says, that enhanced interrogation, you don't get anything because they won't, because they'll tell you anything you want to know, don't know how enhanced interrogation is implied. Unlike Philippe and the other critics, I've actually spoken to the CIA interrogators, the people who waterboarded Khalid Sheikh Mohammed and applied these enhanced interrogation techniques. And one of the things they told me, which was fascinating, when Abu Zubaydah, the first terrorist who was interrogated by the CIA was waterboarded. He told he thanked his interrogators for waterboarding him and said to them, "You must do this for all the brothers." And why did he do that? The reason he did it, he said, is because the jihadi philosophy is that Allah will prevail no matter what they do. So their moral responsibility is to resist as much as they can, and then once they have resisted, they are free to say whatever they want to do. They can spill their guts. Now, if you know that, how do you design an interrogation plan? You design an interrogation program that is safe, that will not harm the detainees, but gives them something to resist. And that is what the CIA did with these, and they got intelligence that stopped terrorist attacks.
Do you support torture? I know you do
not torture.
I know you don't call it torture.
It isn't torture.
The extreme pain, the enhanced interrogation techniques.
There have been so many misstatements told about the enhanced interrogation techniques, comparing them to the Spanish Inquisition, to the Khmer Rouge. And I have to tell you, Christiane, you're one of the people who have spread these mistruths.
Excuse me.
I'm sorry. You went to S21, the Khmer Rouge prison and with Van Nath, who's one of the survivors.
Yes, and we saw the waterboarding there, which they used as torture techniques.
Let me read to you.
That's called spreading the truth.
No. Let me read to you what you said. This is from the CNN website.
Correct.
I stared blankly at another of Van Nath's painting. This time a prisoner is submerged in a life-size box of water, handcuffed to the side so he cannot escape or raise his head to breathe. His interrogators arrayed around him demanding information. I asked Van Nath whether he had heard this was once used on America's terrorist suspects. He nodded his head. It's not right. That is completely false. We did not submerge people in a box full of water. S21.
Excuse me a second.
S21.
That is called waterboarding.
No, it's not.
You can say in whichever way you want.
Christiane, you're absolutely wrong.
I'm sorry. This was Pol Pot and the genocidal regime.
14,000 people killed in S21.
Correct.
7 survivors.
Excuse me. You're trying to obfuscate the debate here. That prison was full of images of water torture.
Which is nothing like what the CIA did.
It is what the Israelis use, the waterboarding. Philippe, how do you answer Mark on this?
I mean, in a very simple way, there is no doubt that waterboarding is torture. Mark supports waterboarding, and some will say, not me, some will say that by writing about it in this way, he is complicit in torture. I'm a passionate believer in freedom of speech, and I don't believe people who write books are in that way, in any way, complicit. But those who engage in the activity of waterboarding are engaging in torture. Susan Crawford, President Bush's own convening authority at Guantanamo, has confirmed that Mohammed al-Qatani, who wasn't even waterboarded, was tortured. But let me take it a step further. I mean, I understand that Mark doesn't think waterboarding is torture. Why doesn't he submit himself to that technique?
Because it's terribly unpleasant, and I'm not a terrorist.
I understand that he was intending to submit himself to that technique, but in the end bottled out of it because he didn't have confidence. He didn't have confidence that those who would impose it on him would necessarily pull the plug at the right moment. It is an appalling technique.
Okay, let me ask you this, because you've said your point, and Philippe said his point. I would like to know about what you recommend going forward. Now that the president has banned torture, enhanced interrogation techniques, what happens going forward, and what do you think?
Well, we should reconstitute the CIA interrogation program, but I want to answer this.
This same program?
I want to answer this because this is very important. First of all, what you had said was not waterboarding. You had said a bucket, a barrel filled with water. You have no evidence whatsoever that the CIA ever actually did what you said they did. But putting that aside,
you're splitting hairs, Mark.
No, I'm not. It's a barrel of water.
Oh, come on, Mark.
No. Hold on.
Dipping people's heads in water to simulate drowning.
No, listen.
Period. End of story.
Not period. End of story. I want to answer this, Christiane.
Mark, it matters not whether you put someone's head in a bucket of water.
It does. Let me tell you something. We waterboarded in the CIA. The CIA waterboarded 3 terrorists. Just 3. Nobody waterboarded in Guantanamo. You know who else the U.S. government has waterboarded? Tens of thousands of American service members during their SEER training. We do not pull off their fingernails. We do not electrocute them with